You got Stitcher? Well, we're on it, so get it! Southsider Studios now on Stitcher. Stitcher is an award-winning provider of news and talk radio for your mobile phone. Stitcher Smart Radio, the smarter way to listen to radio.
Hello, this is Jason Danitz, also known as Nerdatron, from the Nerds of Babylon, and you're listening to the Southsider Studios podcasting system. For more great podcast programming, visit southsiderstudios.com or search Southsider Studios on iTunes.
Cinesmack contains spoilers of the spoiling type. If you don't want your spoilers spoiled, please turn back now. Otherwise, enjoy the show!
Hello, and welcome back to the podcast that puts the smack back into the cinema, Cinesmack. I'm your host, Mike Keeler, and joining me, as usual, my three guest panelists, Mr. Sam Twomey.
Good evening, Cinesmackers.
Tom Haggis.
Do you expect your talk? Oh, of course you do. It's a podcast, so yes, I will be talking.
And Gabe Rowald.
Oh, pushy.
Oh, my.
That was my best impersonation.
And our special guest judge this month is none other than the rapper slash filmmaker slash everything, Mr. Nick Strickland.
We all know Courtney Love actually brought the smack back to cinema.
Thank you, Nick.
It's true. It's true.
All right, well, let's go, man. I'm excited about this podcast. Let me poke the monkey, and we'll see what he has to say.
Ladies and gentlemen, shaken or stirred, welcome to tonight's main event. In the first corner, from 1962, starring Sean Connery, Ursula Andress, and Joseph Weissman, Dr. No! In the second corner, from 2012, starring Daniel Craig, Judi Dench, and Javier Bardem, Skyfall!
Without further ado, let's move on to our first category, which is writing. Tom, you start us off.
Well, I want to first start by saying Dr. No is a really, really great film. I really liked it. And what they were able to kickstart, this franchise that's been going on for 50 years. And I don't know if it's the longest running franchise, but it was a really, really great start. 'Cause quite honestly, Dr. No could have come out and it would have been really bad, and it could just be a footnote, but it wasn't. It's this really classic movie, and so much of the James Bond mythology begins with this one movie, and there's so much in it that helped spawn 50 years of James Bond movies. That being said, there were some things in there that need to be addressed. First of all, and I don't really want to chalk this up to writing, but this is where I'm going to stick it in. There's a real gross misunderstanding of radiation in Dr. No. That, and it was 1960. It was 50. We have 50 years of radiation knowledge to back us up now to laugh at them, but. I'm pretty
sure you just need a push broom and a bucket of suds.
Oh my God. I know that was, Homer Simpson's made nuclear energy look so dangerous. And then I watched Dr. No. I'm like, well, it's not that bad. I was like, maybe this is something me and the kids will work on tomorrow morning. Start our own little nuclear project to shoot down rockets. I guess I didn't really understand how that whole thing worked in there. My favorite has got to be the abandoned area sign in Dr. No's Fortress, which I was like, who put that up? And it was like, apparently we're going to need this sign at some point. because I got there and they're going through orientation. They'd be like, "Oh, and by the way, if you see that sign flashing, you should abandon the area." So it's like, why? I quit because I'm not going to work at a place that has a flashing abandoned area sign. Skyfall, and I really awesome because I finished Doctor No probably 10 minutes before we started recording, and I watched Skyfall at the Late Show last night. So they're both very, very fresh in my mind. And Skyfall was probably one of the best movie-going experience I've ever had. It was just so much fun, and we'll get into all of the little bits and pieces of it. But I thought that the digging into the James Bond's background and his childhood and what happened with his parents, and they've done such a great job with these last three films of creating this much sturdier foundation for who James Bond is as a person. And I get really annoyed with the people that come out and like, oh, Skyfall wasn't really a James Bond movie. And I'm like, no, it's what a James Bond movie can be when you do it the right way. And no, it's not formulaic in the same ways that Dr. No and Goldfinger and the earlier ones are. But the writers did such a great job of making more of a character piece. And we'll get into that more when we talk about Sam Mendes and what he brought to the table. But I'm going to give it to Skyfall because I thought that they took this 50-year-old product and made it so fresh and so new and so entertaining.
All right. Thank you, Tom.
Thank
Sam.
Interesting points, Tom. I kind of come into this whole match kind of unprepared in some ways because I don't feel I've watched as many James Bond films as I should have. I'll back that up by saying, like, my backstory is that my father was really into James Bond. So he's watched every single movie and would probably criticize me for not remembering watching them with him or whatnot. But I'm kind of new to it. But I feel I have a set of fresh eyes coming in, and it was amazing to watch these bookends, like Tom said, from 1963 to 2012, 50 years of James Bond, and the evolution in between. We're going to talk a lot about this, I think, during this podcast about old style, new style, what in some ways the movie-going population expect from a Bond picture now, in some ways on a larger scale. And, in some ways that does come down to the writing, but I think to be more basic, Dr. No is a very straightforward story. It progresses very well. The timing is, the story unfolds in a very pleasant way, and it's not overly convoluted, and it's very, straightforward. You go to Skyfall, modern Bond audiences want more. They want the big locations and the large chase scenes, and we get that in so many ways, which is great. And I really enjoyed watching both films, especially watching Skyfall in the audience with, just a random cross section of people that were just, there to, see an action movie. But I thought, unlike some, action films where the script is a throwaway thing, there was some real great layers here that also built the foundation for future films to come in the Bond franchise, which is great. I think this is really a franchise that should be celebrated. I could go on and on, I guess, about this. Like I was really fascinated by kind of becoming immersed in the world of James Bond again, and I look forward to watching many more movies. For the simplicity and kind of building of a lot of the icons that you see throughout the rest of the franchise, I'm going to have to give my vote to Dr. No.
All right. Thank you, Sam. Gabe.
Interesting. I definitely enjoyed both of these films, and I've seen a number of Bond films and always enjoyed them. And I think I'm in Tom's camp when it comes to character building in the writing process, because it's interesting with Dr. No. I'm sure I've seen it, but it's been a long time, and it's interesting because it's like the introduction of the Bond character, at least to movie-going audiences. And it's kind of interesting how little they give you about Bond. You don't really know anything about him. You just know that he works for MI6 and he likes his martini shaken, not stirred. But you don't really get a lot of past or any history or any really kind of foundation for his character. And so I think that's one of the things I enjoy about the newer Bond movies as well. Tom touched on this. They really delve into that character's past, and they really give you kind of a look at what created Bond as a person and his motivations and why he is the way he is. How he can be a ruthless killer, how he can be a womanizer, why he's a womanizer, why he drinks, and what makes him tough and resilient. And so I find that far more interesting than the Bond of Dr. No. Now you can't beat Sean Connery. We'll talk about this in the acting part. You can't beat Sean Connery for debonair and being suave and that kind of thing. But I think from a writing standpoint, I really enjoy the newer versions of the Bond movies with Daniel Craig and how much they develop those characters. And to me, that really tips the scale as far as the writing. Sure, Dr. No kind of started the franchise, but I really think that the newer movies, including Skyfall, have really perfected the franchise.
Well, one thing I'd like to just get everyone's opinion on is like how much of the early writing is really based on Ian Fleming's novels, and how much is new writing, and how is that changing the franchise?
Right. Well, and one thing I didn't mention is that I wondered if people were already familiar with the Bond character from the novels, and therefore weren't necessarily a detailed look at that character wasn't really necessary in the movies. That I don't know. I don't know how popular the novels were at the time.
Well, according to something I've been reading, Skyfall is actually one of the first films that is pretty much non-Ian Fleming based. Like, this is almost kind of an original script, from what I understand. I'll keep reading, but you kind of woke me up there. I was reading it, and I'm like, wait, what? Sorry.
It has to be. I mean, there's going to come a point where they run out of the books, and they're going to have to start creating some original things. And the Bourne franchise has done a pretty good job of that, producing more material. So I think it's fair enough to say, and I applaud them for going with Casino Royale to start off with, and then start growing away from the book. So I'm fine with that if it's more of a movie franchise before it is a book franchise.
Yeah, well, and I think that's good. I think it's just interesting for our listeners to think about that too, in the writing aspect.
Yeah, he's dead. He's not writing any more books.
Yeah. Well, and if he is, that's impressive. Gabe, I'm sorry, I was totally lost in thought. Who did you vote for?
I voted for Skyfall.
Okay, thank you. I totally missed that. All right, Nick, you're up.
All right. Well, I'll just preface this with I have seen fewer Bond films than anybody on the panel, only 2. So I'll be talking completely out of my ass. But I agree with Gabe. that Dr. No definitely did not address his James Bond's past, and I think it was way better for it. I think that the exploration of he's a man who doesn't need a past. He's just a suave lounge lizard going around killing people. He doesn't need to be all mopey, but I'll get to that later. I think as far as comparing it to the novel, I feel like one of the strengths of Dr. No was that they adapted it. They did change some things. I read the Wikipedia page, which I will be pulling out of my ass here shortly, and they said that one thing that they got some things wrong, they got some things right. One thing I think they got totally right is in one of the earlier drafts, apparently Dr. No was going to be played by a monkey, like it was going to be an evil monkey. That was when he finally got there. I think that was a right choice, and because of that right choice, the franchise went on to to survive. And I've never seen anybody reading a James Bond novel. Like, that is ridiculous. I think the first film made it, like, it is not a film series where you hear people comparing it to the novels a lot, I think, because the pictures are just more socially significant. And that's a testament to the writing in the first one, which set the tone, which got so many of the little things right. The introduction of the character and things that he does. I kind of see James Bond as, I know it's not a direct comparison to Die Hard, but I think he's sort of a John McClane type in that, like, he has these little pithy comments that he says after he does stuff. Like, after the car chasing him goes off and explodes, he's like, I think they're on their way to a funeral. And that was funny. I feel like in Skyfall, they tried to do a similar thing. Like when the chick's got the shot glass on her head and they shoot her, and he's like, oh, that's a waste of scotch. That's terrible. It's a horribly revealing moment for the character. Like, he bedded that lady and, like, used her to get to this guy, and she died. Like, that was just cold. I don't know. I did not like this James Bond. I think the writing went on. This is like a 2.5 hour movie. I feel it was like an hour to 2.5 hours too long.
Wow.
Wow.
Oh hell no. This won't stand. This aggression will not stand, man.
Go, Nick.
You come in here with no Bond knowledge. Oh man, you are in for a
that was Nick. Nick's killing it. Yo, you keep preaching, Nick.
I'm not saying he's not entertaining. I'm just saying he's wrong.
Like I said, I'm not speaking from any base of knowledge on this. I'm just playing devil's advocate. And I thought that more of you would agree with me, because I just thought that film was bloody awful. So I'm going with Dr. No for the writing.
All right.
Good for you, Nick. I agree with you.
Thank you, Nick.
Be quiet.
The script for the classic scene where Honey emerges from the water reads, Bond's eye-lined. Day. What he sees. Honey. Staring at the water's edge. Her back to him. She is naked except for a wisp. I'll leave you guys alone with your thoughts for a second. First one-word Bond movie title in 17 years for Skyfall. The last was GoldenEye. Skyfall is also the shortest ever one-word James Bond movie title, and the only ever one with 2 syllables. Octopussy had 4, but most had 3. Goldfinger, Moonraker, GoldenEye, and Thunderball. The later title of which actually rhymes with Skyfall. Dr. No remains the shortest ever Bond movie title, with the least number of characters, having 5, whereas Skyfall has 7, but Skyfall is the shortest when Dr. No is spelled in its unabbreviated form.
Well, they did come out and announce this week that the name of the new James Bond movie, the next one's going to be So some of your stats might be off there.
I can't wait to see.
I thought it was going to be called Octomussy.
Octomussy?
Then it's like metrosexual, at the mussy instead of the pussy.
Nice.
It's a wider audience, especially they're going to build on the whole James Bond can be gay for a second, and then we'll talk about that, I'm sure.
Very nice.
I thought we explored that with this one, didn't we?
With what? Wait, what?
With Skyfall? I thought there was a little bit in there, but
yeah, there was a little bit in there.
Right. I don't think we talked about it on this podcast yet, though.
No, we have not.
All right, let's move on to acting. And Sam, you start us off. So go right on ahead with your mussy.
Well, I have a clean mussy. I just want to put that out there for the
Did you use the broom and the suds and everything like they showed you in Dr. No?
It's free of radiation.
All the details. But, needless to say, it's clean.
As long as you get it below 40, from what I understand, that's a safe level.
Sorry, that struck me as funny.
Acting. Oh man, this is a tough one because there's in 50 years of Bond films, there's a big difference in the style of acting and the scope of the films that they're working on. And I think we'll talk about this a lot in the directing and overall category. At least I will. Different styles for different times. Sean Connery established the suaveness of James Bond and the character on screen. So it's hard to find fault for 1963 and the style that they were going with. Really iconic characters. I think the men and the women both. The women parts were underwritten but overperformed by some amazing actresses. And even if those names escape me right now, like I really enjoyed those performances. Mm-hmm. Skyfall gives us a window on some really talented actors, taking a new edge on an established franchise, but still delving deep into the characters that, at some points, even at limited knowledge, that we think we know, that we're intimate with, that we think we know James Bond, but we don't. And so I think acting-wise, they're both very evenly matched. But I think and some of this may go to the overall scope of the films, but I think for the level of kind of character reveal that we get, as far as identifying with these characters and throughout the film progressing with them, I think I'm going to go with Skyfall for acting.
All right. Thank you, Sam. Gabe?
Yeah, it is kind of they are very different, and I've always thought that Bond movies and Bond himself, as portrayed in those movies, has always kind of reflected the society at large at the time. And Sean Connery's Bond is definitely very 60s. Very kind of free love, easygoing, suave, carefree. And Daniel Craig's Bond is definitely a little bit, a lot more pensive, a lot more complicated, driven more by, other types of things like, unresolved, anxiety and fear and depression. And he's a lot more nuanced character than the original. However, I don't know how you can beat Sean Connery as James Bond. I mean, he really kind of set the tone. He defined James Bond. He started this franchise, which, by the way, Tom wondered if it was one of the longest running franchises, and it is. It looks like it's only second to Godzilla, of all things. So there's 22 films.
It's Godzilla!
There it is. I was waiting for it.
Nice. And so, I think it's really hard from an acting standpoint. I don't know. They are kind of evenly matched, but in different ways. I really like Daniel Craig as James Bond. I really like the actors. I really liked Albert Finney in this. I found him kind of engaging and kind of heartwarming. You liked him right off the bat. Whereas in other movies, including like the Bourne series that we talked about, I didn't dislike him as an actor, but that character, you kind of don't like him a little bit. But I found Albert Finney very kind of engaging, and you can't go wrong with Ralph Fiennes, and it's really a great ensemble cast. And
Ralph
Daniel
Fiennes
Craig
had some questionable posture. I'm sorry, didn't
we can talk about that.
Weird stances,
yeah.
I know this is before you got shot in the court supposedly, but I'm sorry, I forgot to add that, but I had to put that on the record because it bothered me. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's his natural posture or if that was something he was imparting to the character, but yeah, I think it's really hard to vote against Sean Connery at all because he really established the character of James Bond. So I think in this category, my vote has to go to Sean Connery and Dr. No.
All right, Gabe. Let's go on over to Nick.
Oh, Jesus, here we go.
Hey, no, you know what? Skyfall had a far better cast. Like,
oh my God, you don't have a clue.
Come on, it's got Judi Dench. It's got Voldemort. It's got the
Voldemort.
It's true.
Like,
I
yeah,
like
like
this
just
guy.
raw acting power. And I also agree with what Gabe was saying, that like it was such a nuanced performance in Skyfall, and I feel like James Bond is not supposed to be a nuanced character. And like the audiences from 50 years ago, they saw this dude moping around, wonder if he even needs to be a super agent, thinking about some cave that he had to go live, the little cavern under his house, being sad. They just what's wrong with that pussy special agent? Like, I think he's I don't know. He is not as manly and brave as the old one. This is like, acting wise, the only acting performance that matters in either of these two movies is from Dr. No, the Sean Connery definitive performance. And just based on that alone, even though there's less acting talent in that cast, I think it has to go to Dr. No.
All right. Thank you, Nick. Very passionate, that guy is. Tom.
Man, who invited him? What is going on? James Bond's been going on for 50 years, and they have got to just dig some new depth for their characters. They can't just have this. The Sean Connery James Bond is irrelevant in the 2000s, and that shows too. If you went back and the stuff they did before Casino Royale with was it Pierce Brosnan? Was he the last one?
Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, you could see that they needed a new angle on the James Bond thing, and they did it with Daniel Craig in the last three movies. Look, I'm just going to put.
Go ahead.
What? I'm sorry. No, I didn't know we were interrupting. Go ahead.
I was going to ask one thing I didn't understand. Was he supposed to be an old guy or a young guy? I know it's a reboot and it's only the third one, and they're still fleshing out a story, but the whole thing seemed like a getting too old for this shit kind of vibe.
No, I think just the job was getting to him. I think there are people in their
Too old for
20s
this shit.
I think there are people in their 20s that work at Wendy's, and they would say, there's like, oh, I'm getting too old for this shit, and it's just the job. I don't think it's really a matter of number of years since his birth, but I would say that. Look,
it's not the years, it's the mileage.
Javier Bardem kicked Joe Wiseman's ass as a Bond villain. He was. When he was climbing up the ladder in the subway tunnel,
yeah,
and James Bond was like had him in his sights and he's ready to take him down, there's a little tiny piece of me going, no, don't kill him. He's awesome. He's charming, and he was confident, and he was a really great Bond villain. And it was the really great Bond villains are the ones you hate to see go. And quite honestly, Joe Wiseman could not be consumed by radioactive heavy water fast enough. Plastic hands and all. Like, what were the hand they like worked, but they were plastic. So I don't know, like mechanical hands. I don't know what was going on, but I thought that I'm just going to go with the Bond villain approach. And I had a whole bunch of notes here about Daniel Craig versus Sean Connery, and screw that stuff. Let's talk. I'm going to give my vote based on the Bond villain, and Javier Bardem is just way, way, way better than Joe Wiseman by leaps and bounds. And yes, Joe Wiseman was the first Bond villain, and he's like, this is how you be a Bond villain, and the extraneous monologues and the underground lair, and they laid all of that out for him and everything else. But the crazy suits. Where do we talk about costuming? What was with the crazy radiation suits? Bubble Man, that was awesome. I might go as him for Halloween. But anyway, back on point. Javier Bardem, he wins it just hands down. I mean, everybody else in the cast was really fantastic too. But I'm going to give my vote to Skyfall because what a Bond villain. He was fantastic. So
all right,
there it is.
Why did his skin change color when he took his teeth out?
Why did his skin change color when he took his teeth out?
And texture. His face started to
rise. That kind of bothered me.
Like some contortion or something?
I can explain this.
Because the face wasn't there, so it was all contorted or something?
Yeah, but his skin changed color because he was about to do a town hall meeting on Univision.
Election humor never died.
Election humor, come on. Dude, have we forgotten this already? It's been 3 weeks.
Where's the red shot? The red shot.
Here's something else that I like about Skyfall. The black lady was played by a black lady instead of a German lady all tanned up with somebody else's voice coming out her mouth.
She was good. Like, she was really good.
She was.
Who was? Naomi Harris?
Interpretation on the character. Like, again, I'm not that familiar with James Bond, but knew that Moneypenny was a whatever. But that was great. Like, there was some chemistry there. Like, she wasn't intended as that love interest or whatnot, but there was some great chemistry between her and Daniel Craig in that film.
She was the Felicia Rashad to his Huxtable.
Much sexier.
Very nice, Nick. Thank you.
Much sexier than Felicia Rashad. Just for the record.
I don't know. She was pretty
Naomi.
sexy.
Yeah, she's smoking. Like, she's good looking.
She was pretty sexy.
Ever since she was kicking zombie ass in 28 Days Later, I have loved her. She's been fantastic. So,
All right. Well,
okay, whatever.
no, go ahead, Tom. Sorry.
I just said I like Naomi Harris. That's all. I'm done.
Okay. Are you done?
I am so done. You have no idea.
Author,
Get back to me when you start talking about directors.
all right. Author Ian Fleming wanted his cousin Christopher Lee to play Dr. No. Lee would later appear as Scaramanga. Scaramanga is actually how you say it, not like how I say it, in the 007 flick The Man with the Golden Gun, and would play the character that inspired Fleming to create Dr. No, Dr. Fu Manchu, in several films. Fleming also asked Noel Coward to play the part of Dr. No. Coward turned down the part because he was chicken. No, actually, he turned down the part by replying with a telegram that read, Dr. No, 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 no. One of Coward's objections was having to wear metal hands. Max van Sydow turned down the part in order to play Jesus Christ in The Greatest Story Ever Told, and would finally play a
career
Bond
killer there. Career killer.
would finally play a Bond villain in Never Say Never Again. The role went to Joseph Wiseman, the only early Bond villain not to have his voice dubbed over by another actor. So yeah, Noel Coward. He was too chicken. Kevin Spacey was considered for a role but declined due to scheduling conflicts. Spacey worked with this movie's director, Sam Mendes, on American Beauty. Actress Judi Dench and Mendes have previously worked together in theater on Anton Chekhov's The Cherry Orchard, whilst Jerry Bond...
That's the greatest play of all time, by the way.
Whilst James Bond actor Daniel Craig and Mendes previously worked together on Road to Perdition. I didn't know Craig was in Road to Perdition.
What?
Yeah.
He was the brother.
Oh, that's right. Holy cow.
He was the blood with the creepy eyes.
Totally
He is
forgot about
fantastic in
that. Totally forgot about it. Mendes and cinematographer Roger Deakins have also worked together previously on Revolutionary Road and Jarhead. Craig and actor Ben Whishaw previously worked together on Layer Cake. Skyfall is the second time Harvey R. Bardem has worked with director of photography Roger Deakins. The first was No Country for Old Men. Bardem features as the main villain in both films. So there you go. Just a little who knows who.
I don't understand how Kevin Spacey would have worked into this. I'm not really one of those people in general that say, oh no, you got to have, British actors playing it. But in the James Bond franchise, if you have British people, that's their franchise. That is their superhero, so to speak. We have 50 superheroes in franchises.
As much as he effed up Superman Returns, come on, Kevin Spacey. No.
Well, and I think
I liked him as the villain in Seven. I thought he played that pretty well.
For sure.
I haven't seen that yet. You just ruined it. Oh no, wait, we did that on the show. I have seen that. Okay, sorry.
I think you just said what's great. Nick said he's never seen anyone read a James Bond book, and that's probably because it was huge over in England. And so, it wasn't that big here until the movies started coming out. So over in Britain, you'd see people walking around with Ian Fleming books all the time, where here it was probably a lot more rare. But
I know the movies have been coming out here my whole life. I still haven't seen them.
You need to get across the pond.
Yeah. And from what I gather, I don't think the novels are very long. Like, they're not like a standard novel from what I've seen. Of course, I could be looking at the wrong novels, but they always look more like a kind of a Pulp Fiction type, a pulp comic almost, thickness. Or I could have been looking at the Cliff's Notes section. I don't know.
Actually, if you were at the doctor's office, I believe that was highlights for children. You may have been looking.
And I read every single page.
I could always find things hidden in the picture, that's during the plan.
Let's move on to directing. and Gabe starts us off.
Okay, well, I think this is going to be pretty
Thank
easy
you,
for
Gabe.
me.
Let's move on to...
Excellent. Yep. Thanks, guys. I'll see you next time. Yeah.
Good job, Gabe.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. This is going to be pretty straightforward. Yeah, Skyfall. Yeah, pretty much.
All right.
Yeah, I don't know. From the directing standpoint, I don't know how you could beat Skyfall. It's just really well done. It's really very tight. The action sequences are awesome, but you also get character development. You get to you learn about these characters. You start to care about these characters and what's happening to them. The cinematography is just beautiful. The original Dr. No, it did set the foundation for the franchise, but I didn't think there was anything very spectacular about the directing. I didn't feel like the pacing was all that good. It's really hard sometimes to look at these things in their historical context and go, well, in 1963, that was really awesome compared to the other movies that came out that year, because I didn't go and watch all the movies that came out in 1963 as well. So, but I just feel, comparing these two, the pacing for Dr. No is kind of slow. The acting is kind of campy, although it may have been appropriate for the time. That's kind of what was expected for the time. The writing was campy as well. The cinematography wasn't particularly nice. I noticed certain things like with the lighting. There were a lot of strong shadows that I'm not sure were intentional. There was one scene where he was talking to M, and the camera moves, and there's a painting on the back wall, and you can just see a big glare from the light on this painting, and I feel like that's something that modern audiences would maybe notice, and that a better director would have said, we got to fix that. You can't have that glare on there because it's too obvious. So I just felt like the directing overall wasn't very strong for Dr. No, and Sam Mendes did a stupendous job with Skyfall. I just didn't, I didn't think of Sam Mendes as an action film director, but I think he really did a great job with this and pulled it off brilliantly.
All right. Thank you, Gabe. Let's move on to Nick.
Consider this task in front of each of these directors, right? For Dr. No, you're working on a shoestring budget just trying to make this thing happen. You're not trying to create a franchise for 50 years. You're just trying to make it happen. Like the Mike and I were talking about this earlier, the scene where the geologist gets a tarantula from Dr. No. They built that set for like a few £100. It's amazing. Like, it's a beautiful shot. Sam Mendes had all the money in the world and had the blueprint that was created by this first film. They did the opening sequence in Dr. No. They had all the little Bondisms, the classic things that live forever in the movies. All Sam Mendes had to do was not screw up that blueprint, and he failed. He failed so bad. He changed.
Oh my God, you are in so much trouble.
I think he ruined he at least changed the Bond character. And here's one thing, and maybe I just don't understand this. This is one of my least favorite parts about. Can anybody explain to me when they go back to Scotland and they go to his old house that he grew up in? Who's that dude? Who's living in the
caretaker.
House? He's the game master. He takes care of the caretaker. He takes care of the house.
And
it's Daddy Warbucks. It's Daddy Warbucks. Years later.
Sam, we're not helping. We're trying to help Nick here.
Okay. No, did anybody see the Robin Hood with Kevin Costner?
Yes.
You know when he goes back to his house after it's been burned and Duncan's there because they took his eyes, right?
Yeah.
It's like that. But that guy still has his eyes. What the hell is he doing there? Like, James Bond is a grown-ass man. Why is he still watching after that empty house? I don't understand it.
So you're giving your vote to Skyfall then?
No, I feel like
they do that in your. You don't have a. I'm sorry, you don't have a caretaker at your house. I have 3.
I have 3.
Well, his parents were dead. Who's he caretaking for? I don't know. It just seemed weird that guy was there. I'm sorry.
I think he just didn't want to move out. Like, he's in between situations. He's like,
He was just
I got
squatting.
this free house in the middle of nowhere, so I'm gonna choose to pay no rent for a few months in the transition. That's understandable. Like,
All the furniture's covered. There's no TV on. He's not reading a James Bond book. Like,
he
he's
doesn't have wanderlust. He's not like needing the companionship. Like, he old, you know it.
Yep.
Let's just
No.
be thankful that when Kincaid came out, he had pants on. I was like, oh, Mr. Bond, what are you doing here?
No. Skyfall was pointless. Dr. No.
All right. Thank you, Nick. Let's go to Tom.
I want to thank the powers that be that put me after Nick. I think all of our listeners are incredibly thankful that I get to step up and correct the damage that Nick has been doing.
I love having Nick on the show.
It is.
Which
I
one of
agree.
you am I
think
getting rid of so he can sit in your spot?
He can have mine.
Go ahead, Tom.
Okay. Well, let's talk about the wonderful, brilliant direction of Dr. No. First of all, I didn't know that tires could squeal on gravel roads. Who knew? That was crazy. That the sound editor was like, they're like racing down this dirt gravel road and the tires are squealing for some reason. I'm like, what is that? That's absolutely ridiculous. And
There's jump cuts, too.
yeah, well, I'll let jump cuts pass because it was 1962, and apparently that was the in thing at the time, according to my knowledge of Austin Powers. I also love the part when they get to Dr. No's palace or what his underground lair, and they're in the room about to drink the tainted coffee, and James Bond does the whole "this room could be bugged," and she like leans back and passes what I can only assume is the shadow from the boom microphone. So go back and watch it. It's pretty awesome. There's a nice big shadow crosses across her face. So these are minor things, and I shouldn't be knocking them on these little things because it was 1962 and that was the style of the time. I am a huge Sam Mendes fan, and I think all of his films, he puts just so much effort and work into all of the movies that he does, and I think it shows, in Skyfall, that he knew that he was handed a very precious franchise, and that he had to handle it very, very delicately and carefully, and it shows. And the same with Roger Deakins, and I'm a huge Roger Deakins fan, and I think he has the ability to take every shot and turn it into this beautiful framed composition of light and shadow, and I was really interested to see how he was going to handle something like an action movie, and he kept it up, and it was just so well done. It was such a beautiful movie to see. And Terrence Young did a pretty decent job, and I think he went on to direct 3 or 4 more Bond movies after this, and he definitely created a style, but Sam Mendes took the James Bond franchise and turned it into a character piece. And I know that that's not what James Bond was in 1962, and they've gotten away from their original intent. But, after 50 years, I want to know what makes this guy tick. And apparently it's, orphaned parents and this crazy game warden. You've ruined the movie for me, Nick. Did you know that?
Sorry, I'm just talking about my ass.
Now, Skyfall for me now ends when they pull up at his childhood home. I'm just going to have to turn it off. Like, oh crap, here comes Kincaid. So thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah, go screw yourself. So anyway, I'm a huge Sam Mendes fan, and I think Skyfall was just really brilliant directing, and my hat off to Deakins for, again, just wonderful, wonderful film. I know that when Roger Deakins is behind the film, that the film itself could be a kind of a dull film, and it could be a little bit slow at times, but even when it's slow, every shot is so beautiful. And I think it's Assassination of Jesse James comes to mind as one of those movies that it's a little bit long, but I will sit there and I will watch the entire thing because it's absolutely so beautiful. So I will give my vote to Skyfall just to counter Nick's idiotic vote. So I think we're just going to pretty much just cancel each other out, I think, today. So
I think the whole group's going to cancel me out.
Well,
No, I don't know. I think we're fairly even right now. It's
yeah.
going to be a close one.
yeah, it's fairly
God
even
bless
right now.
democracy or whatever kind of weird geopolitical thing we got going on here. So anyway, Skyfall.
All right. Thank you, Tom. Sam.
Wow. Discussion. I was
Back it
surprised. I know. I was surprised Nick was so down on Skyfall for the directing.
Yeah, shocker.
I don't know. Again, apples and oranges. In some ways, it's, Gabe had said it's hard to say, this is 1960 and that's what's acceptable for audiences. But in some ways, that's our job on this podcast, because we want to view the films that we're looking at not only how people would view them now, but for what they meant for movie audiences at that time. And I think a lot of the stuff between Dr. No, within Dr. No, it was something different for audiences at that time. But to me, the issue comes down to scale. Like, I kind of love the simplicity of Dr. No, and that anyone that hasn't watched a James Bond film can easily get into that film and be led along from plot point to plot point. But the whole scope of Skyfall is so much bigger. It's what modern movie audiences expect. Huge locations, huge chase sequences, huge everything. But yet also a new type focus on character. And I think in directing Skyfall, it's just a much larger chore. It's a much bigger project.
Right.
You're showing more. You're showing exotic locations. You're showing depths of characters that we've never seen. And you're also, in some ways, expected to do that. Because, after 50 years, to go back to the simplicity of the original Bond film, I think most of our panelists would agree, except for some, that Skyfall is a much bigger endeavor. And I don't want to jerk Sam Mendes off anymore, or he's going to come in my face. Not to be totally crass about it.
Is that where he is? Because I invited him to my house for the show.
Oh my!
Oh my! No, to me, it's a much bigger job. So,
come on his face for me too, Sam.
Wow!
Skyfall.
Okay, thank you, Sam. The directing job was originally offered to Guy Hamilton, Guy Green, and Ken Hughes for Dr. No. Brian Forbes was also asked to direct. They all turned it down. Phil Carlson was also considered. In the end, Terrence Young directed Dr. No and then returned for From Russia with Love and Thunderball. Danny Boyle was once erroneously touted in the media as having been asked to direct this film prior to Sam Mendes. One of this film's main Bond girls, Naomi Harris, appeared in Boyle's 28 Days Later, like Tom said, which was released in the same year as the last Bond film with a black Bond girl, Die Another Day. Ironically, Boyle ended up directing the James Bond short with Daniel Craig and Queen Elizabeth II, which opened the 2012 London Olympics opening ceremony. So there you go.
You know what? I'll just record this now, and I'm telling you, Danny Boyle will direct the next one.
Think so, huh?
I think so. I'm going to put my money down.
I've heard Danny Boyle's name associated with the new Star Wars, but Danny Boyle could totally direct Star Wars.
Danny Boyle could direct whatever the hell he wants.
I agree with that statement.
We always come into a Danny Boyle love fest on this podcast. Amazing films.
Watch it. Sam Mendes is going to get upset at you guys. He's going to get jealous.
I'm pretty sure Sam Mendes is over there going, yeah, Danny Boyle's fucking awesome.
All right.
One of our former panelists, Tosh, he had sent a link where the people were trying to get Brad Bird to do the next Star Wars movie. And I thought that might not be a bad choice either. It's not really the same as Danny Boyle, but it's not necessarily a bad choice either.
It's true. It's not. But I think he came back and said he was busy. He said he was.
I know this is kind of a wormhole we're heading down, but
yes, it is.
So yeah, let's talk Star Wars directors. I think I got to tell you, there isn't Brad Bird was the closest, but I'm not sure there's a name that has come out where I haven't gone, no, you're close, but
Spike Jonze.
Spike Lee. Spike Lee.
How about they get Medea or whatever his name is?
yeah, Tyler Perry.
Yeah, Tyler Perry, Star Wars.
Oh Lord!
No, but you're close.
Sorry.
Joss
All
Whedon.
right. But
there you
he's
go.
busy with Avengers.
Uh,
I would love to see a Joss Whedon.
what's the guy who directed? What's the guy that directed Wanted and?
I can't say
Abraham Lincoln Vampire. Yeah.
Tibor.
Yeah.
Something Russian.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Let's move on to.
Ask Kevin Smith to step up. Like, it's so bigger than he's ever done. Ask fanboy Kevin Smith to step up. That could be fucking amazing.
Yeah, it might be a lot of dialogue.
Kevin Smith in the it'd be Star Wars characters sitting around talking about Star Wars characters.
Yeah, what? 37? Really? All right. Let's move on to our last round overall.
Oh man.
Nick, you start us off, sir.
All right. Dr. No changed the swimsuit industry forever. Did Skyfall change the swimsuit industry? I guess that I reckon that Skyfall had little to no effect on the swimsuit industry. I rest my case. No. I did have some problems with Dr. No. Like the ending in particular. Like the confrontation between him over dinner was real boring, and it seemed like James Bond should have seen that coming with the drug and the coffee. Like, I don't know.
Didn't he suspect it? He suspected it earlier in the vodka. Remember, he opened the one bottle and then thought
That's
twice.
true.
Yeah. Why
Yeah,
didn't
but
you think
nobody
of that?
drugs coffee.
And that was
right?
in his own room.
Coffee's safe.
But Honey even says something, and he's like, "Oh, fuck off, I'm hungry." Like, I think that was verbatim. Okay, then Dr. No, like, rather than killing him, imprisons him, which is like a pretty cliche bad guy thing to do, but it is the first James Bond, so they can do some of that. But my problem is he breaks out, he gets into the air duct, which is filled with water.
Yes. And then when he comes out the one end, it comes out into an open room.
Right. Right.
You're like, is the water just running into that room?
It would suck to work in that room, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would. I mean, there is water in that room because that's like the reactor room, isn't it? Where they have the core underwater or whatever. But it didn't look like the entire room was just like doused with water. But
Right. And he got close enough to Dr. No where I feel like Dr. No should have realized that was James Bond. Like,
it wasn't Chang.
Yeah. The front of that mask was clear. Like, that was a white guy in there. But still, I must say, for like as nonsensical as that ending was, is way better than Skyfall. Dr. No.
Oh my god.
Thank you.
Dr. No's was really like, there's a lot of action in it, but I guess I saw 2.5 hour movies this week. I saw Skyfall and Lincoln was just talking, and I was riveted. I was serious. My eyes were getting heavy during Skyfall. It was just it was sensory overload. I couldn't take it. It was just a little bit too long. Gotta go with Dr. No.
All right. Thank you, Nick. Tom.
No, that's all right. Here I come with my chum bucket to clean up Nick's mess. Here we go. Oh my god. All right. Okay. Everybody just forget whatever's been said in the last 5 minutes. So, I think
Hey.
Look, there's a world of difference between Dr. No and Skyfall, and this was something that we obviously knew we were getting ourselves into when we picked these two movies to go at it. I'm not sure that there's a single franchise out there that has benefited from the advances of movie technology the way that the James Bond has, and the special effects, and I'm sorry, I'm doing little air quotes when I say that, of Dr. No are pretty funny in hindsight. And I think that what you get in Skyfall pretty much whatever they want to dream up, they can do now in movies. And they didn't really have that in 1962.
Dr. No had a dragon. Did Skyfall have a dragon?
Yeah. Yeah, that was a pretty awesome dragon. It was pretty sweet. It was like, I think it was left over from, it's the same one they used in Animal House, isn't it? For the parade float, because it was pretty lame. So, seriously, I'm not sure why James Bond didn't look at the other two and went, you thought that was a dragon? What is wrong with it? Clearly, it's a car designed to breathe fire. So anyway, getting back to the whole point. The James Bond franchise, which James Bond is a technical gadget guy, and he has really benefited from technology and the advance of computers and everything else that we've experienced. James Bond has been able to become even a better spy because of it. I mean, Star Wars comes to mind. I can't think of. I mean, there's a franchise that actually got worse as the technology got better. Yeah. So I think Skyfall is just simply a better movie, and it's just And Dr. No, I don't know. I feel like I'm kicking my grandpa in the teeth, and because I'm not being grateful for everything that Dr. No has given us. But the fact of the matter is that when you compare them on an even surface, it's just Skyfall is that much better of a movie. And that being said, too, I want to talk about real quick about Thomas Newman's score and going back to what Sam Mendes did and Roger Deakins, and to that extent, Daniel Craig. Oh my God, I almost said Roger Craig. The scotch is getting low. Anyway, the people that were given the Bond franchise and the 50 years of history behind it, you can tell that they handled it with such reverence for everything that's come before them, and they had a whole lot of fun with it. And Thomas Newman's score is another example of that. The way that he was able to play with that Bond theme a little bit inside it, inside the movie. So I'm going to give my vote to Skyfall. Because nobody saw that coming. So, because it was awesome. It was such a really, really great movie, and I cannot wait to see it again. Dr. No, I'll watch again because I really, really liked it, and I thought it was a fantastic movie. But on par, it's just not on par with what I saw.
All right, thank you, Tom. Sam,
you're welcome.
Well, I overall category is one of those where it's kind of a catch-all for everything. And there is something very nostalgic and enjoyable about watching Dr. No. Watching the simplicity of a character and a beloved franchise being born. It was much smaller. It was an effective story to reach audiences and build their hunger for more. And it did that, in spades. And Sean Connery established himself as James Bond, one of the most suave movie characters ever, imagined or put on celluloid. I think Sam Mendes and definitely Daniel Craig and the creative team behind Skyfall do take a great deal of reverence, and I like that about Skyfall, and that it understands what helped build the foundation for its existence, and it honors that. But it doesn't let that history handcuff it and, make it the film that, you might expect from the next installment. I think they pay reverence to it, but they also take it in a new direction, and that's what movie audiences want to see. I think that's, they enjoy these characters, yes, but there's more of a level of sophistication to audience-going members of 2012 than there was in 1963, and both movies do a great job of appealing to those audiences. But to me, overall, with a great Bond villain, with just the continued different adaptation of James Bond from Daniel Craig, I just think there's so much more there. So my overall has to go to Skyfall.
All right. Thank you, Sam. Gabe, you're up and last.
All right. I'll try to keep it brief. I just wanted to make one note on the soundtrack for Skyfall as well. When I noticed that it was Thomas Newman, I didn't know that going into the movie. And when I noticed that, I was actually pretty impressed because typically when you hear a Thomas Newman score, you know it's Thomas Newman. He has kind of a very distinct style.
Right.
And I like it, but you can kind of tell it's him. It's like, oh yeah, he has his favorite instruments in this kind of pacing that he really likes. But I thought he really veered from his typical style and made this particular score fit the Bond franchise. And I thought he set aside his personal style and made it really work for the movie. And I was really impressed with that. And I guess not only did Dr. No, kind of serve as the starting point for the Bond franchise, the James Bond character, but it also started that James Bond theme song, which you have to admit is one of the most memorable film theme songs ever. Everybody knows it. Everybody hums it. Everybody knows what it means when they hear it. This is super spy music right here. And I think it's interesting because it's a style of music that definitely came out of that time period, but it's interesting how well it has transcended that time period and is still relevant today and is still used in all the Bond films. And so I have to give a lot of credit, to the film, the music composition for Dr. No as well. But I think I'm with Tom and Sam. It's really hard for me to not look at Skyfall as a far superior film from just about every respect. Sure, Dr. No started the franchise, but I believe that Skyfall is continuing the franchise. It's expanding on the franchise. It's molding it for a new generation of film goers, and it's redefining James Bond and the whole super spy genre. And I think, in my personal opinion, it's redefining it in all the right ways. It's making Bond, far more nuanced, far more interesting. It's continuing great action and fun gadgets, awesome cars. And speaking of the car thing, I think it was pretty funny how Bond, sleeps with that woman whose name I don't know if we ever get. I don't even know if she has a name in the credits. But he sleeps with that woman, and then Javier Bardem's character ends up killing her, and he seems like Bond has very little remorse, like almost none. But then they blow up his car, and he looks so pissed. When they blow up his car, it's like, that's it. Never touch Bond's car, because that'll set him off. He looks so mad at that point. I was like, oh, that's kind of funny. And I didn't know what that meant exactly. It's like, what does that say about his character? This woman died, and he could care less. And then all of a sudden, they blow up his classic car, and that's it. He's enraged.
I was more pissed about the car too.
Well, I'd be pissed about both actually, but So I just really think that Skyfall is doing a great job of redefining and reimagining and expanding upon the Bond universe, and I personally like the direction it's going in. So overall, Skyfall gets my vote.
All right, thank you, Gabe.
Hey, Gabe.
Yeah.
That was an awesome segment you just said. Seriously, after I got done talking, I was like, oh no, I forgot to talk about this, and this, and you touched on everything. That was just
oh really?
Kudos to you, sir. Kudos to you.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you.
All right.
I'm sorry. I know it's Cinesmack, but whatever. Gabe said the right stuff. So, see, Nick, this is how it works.
I figured that's why you were complimenting me. It was actually a backhanded insult to Nick.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, I got a couple things that occurred to me too. Can I have
Yeah,
a few
go
last
ahead.
minute things?
Yeah.
Oh, we're running out of time. Go ahead. I'd like to make my picks.
Sean Connery's manscaping. Did you see how big his eyebrows were and how neat his happy trail was?
Did not notice that. No.
Number 2, in Skyfall. I don't know all the rules of James Bond movies, but like when he's with the lady and he saves her, like at the end, when he's like helping Judi Dench, I'm pretty sure he was supposed to hit that. And he didn't do it. And 3, the bad guy, Silva, he I don't know, like he wasn't bent on world domination or anything. He was just like cyberbullying his mom. Like it was lame.
Yeah, I have to admit that. I think both the villains in these movies were that their missions seemed kind of not well defined, and maybe like why did Silva build this huge network? Why did he spend so much time becoming taking over an island and building this huge computer network and hiring henchmen and doing background checks and all that kind of stuff?
Terrorized old lady.
Just to get back at her.
Sorry, your background check didn't come back. You can't be a henchman. I'm sorry.
Right. Yeah.
I would
Checked it as one of his henchmen. That's no good.
Yeah,
I would love to work in HR. I would love to work in HR for a Bond villain.
That'd be awesome.
I'm sorry, I'm not ruthless enough.
You have some mommy issues.
Yeah, I thought that was a little bit. I thought his motivations were a little bit weak. It was very grandiose. His approach to basically getting back at her was very grandiose.
Right.
And I have to.
She cost him a lot. Like as you see when he's talking about the cyanide capsule and whatever. Like what she did to his life was not insignificant enough for him not to come back and then, like he said to Bond, to basically, choose the spy activities he wants to do. Like, he's making money, he's doing a good thing. So I think his performance is very, very good. Like Tom pointed that out much earlier in the acting category, but
I like his performance a lot. I really like Javier Bardem, but I just felt like that character's motivations were maybe a little bit weak. Maybe if they had expanded it where he was kind of going after MI6 in general,
sure.
where lots.
We never talked really about the gay stuff. Like they in some way they made a point of putting out those scenes, that sexually kind of charged atmosphere that he created, and even within the script, they created that moment and then they just go far away from it. So it's like, why did you put that moment in there? Where it was.
He's like, Bond, would you like it up the butt? And he's like, how do you know I haven't had it up the butt? Exactly. I remember
that scene. It's just strange. It's like, why is that in there if we don't go back to it? It's like, yes, I like men. Okay, well, I had sex with this woman and I will kill her. It's like, I don't know.
Maybe that's why he didn't feel any remorse about the woman dying. I don't know.
Maybe.
I think they were laying foundation for future Bond films. Dr. Yes.
Yeah! Tom, that is a multi-million dollar idea. Okay?
Dr. Yes.
Eat it up. I love it.
Dr. Hell Yes.
007 inches, I tell you.
Wow. Okay. All right. Got to take control of the show now.
Where's Mike?
I was just letting you guys go, but now, all right. So I know, Nick, these are the only two Bond films you've seen.
Yes.
I want to know from everyone, and I mean, you can speak to it too, Nick. Your top 3 Bond films. And I mean, for Nick, you would have 2. So let's start with we'll start with Tom. Your top 3.
Boy, you know what? And I was toying with this last night. Skyfall and Casino Royale are both right up there at the top. Quantum Solace was pretty good, but actually my number 3 is View to a Kill, and that was the Bond film that came out when I was like 12, 13 years old, and I was just like, oh, this James Bond guy is so cool.
And hello, Christopher Walken, James Bond. You can't beat that.
Yeah, that's true.
I expect you all to say View to a Kill for one of your top three.
All right, Sam.
Well, I'm not going to say View to a Kill.
Oh, come on.
I know. I have to say Casino Royale for sure. Daniel Craig. Great re-envisioning, just invigoration of the franchise that led us to what we're talking about today, Skyfall. Casino Royale. I'm going to have to say Octopussy, because even though I haven't seen it all the way through and I need to see it again, it gave me the chance to say pussy from 1983. So I don't know. As a young kid, like the chance to say pussy in like a socially acceptable context is good. So it's got to be up. And then third one, Skyfall. Like I love the culmination of 50 years of Bond. I think this movie is a perfect tribute to what is right in modern American cinema franchises, and I think it delivers its content in a smart way to an ever-expanding audience. So, yeah, Skyfall for sure.
Gabe.
Sam, I want to thank you for the visual of you as 12 years old
Just
going up to a group of friends and going,
Octopussy.
with your eyebrows up going, so, Octopussy? Thank you for that. Thank you so much.
Gabe.
Octopussy.
Gabe.
Nice. Well, yeah, I think I'm with with Tom and Sam. I think Casino Royale is probably my favorite of the entire franchise. It really is a great reimagining of the Bond franchise and a kind of a rebooting of it. It's a great movie. Awesome action sequences. That free running sequence at the beginning is so cool. And it's just a great movie. I think Skyfall would be probably a close second to that. I enjoyed it quite a bit. And I think one of the older ones, Moonraker, was probably one of my favorite ones. And it's probably mostly because that's probably one of the earliest introductions that I had to the Bond franchise. And I always did kind of like Roger Moore's James Bond as well.
If it was called Poonraker, would it be your number one?
If it was called what?
Poonraker.
Pussy Raker?
No, Poonraker.
Pussy.
Poon.
Like, sure.
Yeah, sure.
I gotta go outside and rake up all this poon. Hold on.
Yeah, that might jump it from 3 to 1. For sure.
Jesus.
Yeah. No, and it was also it was in outer space. It had the space shuttle and laser beams and stuff that were really cool when I was a kid. So Moonraker had to be it.
Oh boy.
And I think after we let Nick go, maybe we should talk just briefly about maybe the actors who have portrayed Bond throughout time. Maybe we can kind of give who's our favorite Bond.
Well, actually, I'm gonna answer that along with my top 3.
Okay.
Number 3 is.
Can I go? Hello?
Oh, yeah, go ahead, Nick. I'm sorry.
Neither of these films made my top 3, so I'm going to go with You Only Live Twice, GoldenEye, and Thunderball.
There you go.
GoldenEye? GoldenEye?
Easy. Steady.
The video game was way better. The video game was the only thing that made that movie worth.
Okay, so I'm going to go with my top 3. I'll go in descending order because Sam, we lost Sam, so we'll have to wait for him to get back here. Number 3 is Casino Royale, and Daniel Craig is my third favorite Bond. Number 2 is GoldenEye, because it was the first Bond film I saw in the theater, and I loved Brosnan as Bond, but when it got later into his run, it started getting way too campy for me. Number 1 is not A View to a Kill, but A View to a Kill was the first Bond movie I ever saw. It's Goldfinger. And Sean Connery is by far my favorite Bond ever. And that's my top 3 Bond films, top 3 Bond actors, and top 3 favorite Bond songs. I mean, it just down the list. And don't get me
see,
wrong.
I really liked I'm a big fan of Chris Cornell, so I really liked the Casino Royale theme.
And I thought Adele.
I kind of like the Skyfall one too.
I thought she did a great job.
I didn't think I'd like an Adele theme song, but I kind of like it.
I thought she did fantastic. But for me, the Goldfinger, everything Goldfinger, just hands down is my favorite. All right, let's go ahead now that everyone's back. Let's poke the monkey and find out who won.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? Your winner by decision is Skyfall!
Well, I mean, kudos to Dr. No. I mean, it did build the franchise.
It did.
You know, everyone always recognizes Sean Connery for his performance as Bond, so that will never die. But the fact that it has not only life, but, I don't know, really thoughtful analysis of the characters and what it means to bring a Bond film to modern audiences. Like, I'm excited by that. I think that's great for the franchise.
Yeah,
absolutely. And, you know, we do this whenever we do two great movies against each other. We always have to do the whole disclaimer. We're like, hey, we're not saying the other movie sucks ass. We're just saying this one sucks ass less. Yeah.
Right.
So
we should call this show Cynic Crack because that's what y'all are smoking. Skyfall.
Oh, Nick.
I like Snake. You got to come back. You have to come back.
Oh, I like having you on.
I'd love to. Can I watch some films that I care about?
Absolutely. You name it. You name the next one. We'll keep you informed. You tell us which one you want to do.
Look, you know what? I just want to say, Nick, I can understand where you're coming from, too. If you hadn't seen any James Bond films and you walked into Skyfall, there are about 36 little references in that movie that you completely miss. When he opens the garage and the Aston Martin sitting there, and everybody that's ever seen a James Bond movie goes,
it's
nice. It's the old ass car. Great.
It's the Aston Martin DB5. It made its first appearance in Goldfinger, and then it made its second appearance ever in Goldeneye, and then it made its third appearance and probably last in this one. So
apparently, it was also briefly in Casino Royale.
Was it?
Yeah, isn't that the one that he won from the other guy?
I don't know.
That he drove around. He drove around the loop. Really,
I don't think so.
The girl hops in and he's like, "Let's go to my place," and then he just drives around the driveway there.
Maybe it was.
I think that's what he wins.
You may be right. Yeah, I could have swore it was just in those three, but you could be correct, Gabe. So, all right. Before we send off here, I want to do a shout out to a fan. He actually took the time to write to us on our Facebook page, and I think we owe him kudos. His name is Gary Donaldson, and he says, "Hey guys, just wanted to say how much I enjoyed the Night of the Living Dead versus Invasion of the Body Snatchers podcast. I'll need to check out the original version of Invasion as I've never seen it before. It was nice to hear Jimmy Stewart getting involved." So, yeah, thank you, Gary. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Well, Gary, we want to say thank you for listening because we like our audience, and we're glad that you're listening.
You're drunk, Daddy.
It's true.
It's true. All right, guys, we're in that portion of the podcast where you're going to tell everyone where they can find you and what you're up to. So let's start with Tom.
People can find me on Facebook and Vimeo. Are we doing pics?
Oh, God, we forgot about pics. Yeah, that's a good idea.
I whispered into my microphone so that nobody else could hear.
Thank God you said that, Tom, because I would feel like a fool if everyone could hear.
I'm just going to pick it up and go with it, okay? Nobody can hear me. Okay.
Go ahead and do it.
I assume what you mean by where people can find me by my pick for the week.
Yes, that's what
I would like to. I would like to recommend the Coen Brothers movie, Miller's Crossing, and I've been sitting on this one for months and months and months, waiting for us to do a gangster flick
Fantastic
or
movie.
a Coen Brothers movie or something really great. So what I got is Roger Deakins, who's the Coen Brothers DP now. And he did not do the photography, cinematography for Miller's Crossing, but it's still a very beautiful film shot by Barry Sonnenfeld, who went on to do great movies like Wild Wild West and Men in Black 3. But it's a wonderful, wonderful mobster film, and there are so many really great, mobster gangster movies. But Miller's Crossing is my second or third favorite, depending on how I feel towards the Godfather trilogy on any given day. But I would recommend Miller's Crossing because it's such a great movie, and you guys need to check it out because it is up there with the Godfather in terms of gangster movies.
That's a strong statement. I agree totally. Let's go to Sam.
Oh, hello, everyone. My pick. It took, a lot of people like to stay with the theme that we're going with. Watching all this Bond, I'm reminded, and I put this on a Facebook post earlier today, but I'm reminded lots of really bad kind of TV cartoon show called James Bond Jr. from the late 1990s. That's not my pick, but I've been thinking a lot about James Bond Jr.
Coming to save the motherfucking day.
Exactly.
No, that was
Nick knows where I'm coming from. That's exactly right. But I'm actually going to recommend something that I was equally reminded of watching these films, especially Dr. No, which is Austin Powers. It's on my reviewing list. It's been a long time since I've watched the original. And, having watched Dr. No now, I know where a lot of some of the, bubble suit images come from and some of those jokes that I had no idea about when I first watched Austin Powers. And so I feel I have a new take on it. I really want to watch the original again with my fiance and enjoy it. So my pick has to be the original Austin Powers, available on Netflix, and check it out.
All right. Thanks, Sam. Gabe?
Well, they've been playing X-Men First Class on HBO quite a bit lately. And every time it's on, I watch it because it's really pretty good. I didn't have a lot of, I didn't have high hopes for it. The X-Men movies have been decent, but not great necessarily. But this X-Men First Class is really, really great. A lot of good stuff. Again, they're kind of taking this and kind of revamping it a little bit, adding a little bit more character development. You learn a lot more about the X-Men and how they developed and where they come from. And there's great acting. There's a whole slew of great actors in this. The music, I actually bought the score because I keep humming the theme music from it all the time. The cinematography is good. The writing is good. It's just a really solid movie. So I would highly recommend, if you like superhero movies, if you like action movies, go out and watch X-Men First Class.
Good pick. All right, Nick.
I mentioned that I saw Lincoln earlier in the week. It was fantastic. I think it is. I haven't seen all the films this year. That'd be hard. But it is one of the best ones, I think. It's probably going to win a lot of awards and stuff. And I thought it was just great. So if you have 2.5 hours and you want to fill your eyes and ears with something that is not complete garbage, don't go see Skyfall. Go see Lincoln.
All right. Thanks, Nick. Well, my pick is something I just watched today, and it pretty much floored me. I haven't seen a good action film in quite a long time, and it's called The Raid Redemption, and it's an Indonesian film. And basically a SWAT team becomes trapped in a tenement run by a ruthless mobster and his army of killers and thugs. So I would check it out. Mike Schroeder from Linkin Park does the music for it. And there are some crazy action scenes in it. And it actually has a pretty good storyline. I think some of the acting is pretty well done. So check it out. It's got a 7.7 rating. So, yeah, there you go. Okay, Tom, now this is where I'm going to tell you to go ahead and make your picks. Or not make your picks, but tell them.
He made his picks. He's limping.
Okay. Tell them where they can find you on the internet. Okay.
Okay, got it.
Okay. So, Tom, where
sadly,
can people find you on
in the last 3 minutes, people can no longer follow me on Facebook or Vimeo as I have been kicked off.
What?
In the last 3 minutes. It's been a really wild 3 minutes involving several small people and some farm animals and a bottle of Coke. But let me just tell you that I will be back on Vimeo and Facebook. If you just search for Tom Haggis, just spell it phonetically, you'll find me.
All right. Thanks, Tom. Sam?
Well, what can I say? I'm always looking for new Facebook friends at Facebook. Look up Sam Twomey. Maybe I'll find you, maybe not. But please leave us your comments in the Cinesmack section of Facebook. Like, we want to hear what you think about what we do. And, yeah. So, more importantly, go like us on Cinesmack.
Yeah. Gabe?
Yeah, you can find me on Facebook, Gabriel Rowold, Rowold. And we, some friends and I do the 48-Hour Film Project, where I met a lot of these guys. And we have a YouTube page for our team. Our team name is One Genome Short, and you can find us on YouTube and check out some of our short films.
All right, thanks, Gabe. Nick?
If there's anybody listening who likes James Bond, I really don't want them to find me. But you could go to my Twitter page, Nick_Strickland. Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing we haven't said is thank you to all of our listeners. I know we're all very thankful for people that listen to us talk about these great movies. And happy Thanksgiving to all of you. I'm very thankful to be on this panel and hope we have several shows ahead of us.
Yeah, well, thank you, Sam.
Well said.
Well said. I was also going to announce that to commemorate our second year, going into our second year, going into our third year, however you want to look at it, I'm going to start sitting down with our three panelists, and we're going to find out what makes you guys tick. What got you started in the film, what your favorite films are. We're just going to get to know you guys so the listeners can get to know you guys even more and see where you're coming from. But that's a few weeks down the road, and it's not going to be all of you at once. It's going to be one-on-one. I know I've talked to a couple of you before. Thanks to all the listeners. Thanks to the three of you. Thank you, Nick, for being our special guest.
It was fun.
A blast. I always have a blast doing this podcast, and I hope it shows. I hope our listeners can see can hear how much fun it is for all of us. And we would appreciate if you could leave us a review on iTunes or whatever podcasting service you use. It helps other people like you find us. You can contact us at cinesmack@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Just search Cinesmack. For our December bout, we throw Bad Santa in the ring with Elf. And we may have a very special guest judge. Not that all of our judges aren't special. But this one, well, he's kind of a Hollywood type, Mr. Brandon Baker. So for Gabe, Sam, Tom, Nick, and myself, thanks for listening, and go catch a flick.
Bond. James Bond.
My name's Bond. James Bond. My name's Bond. James Bond. Bond. James Bond.
Name's Bond. James Bond.
The name's Bond. James Bond.
James Bond, you fucking bitch.
Okay, so Jimmy Stewart is Moneypenny, and I'll be Sean Connery as Jim Connery. I'm Moneypenny. I'm going to do that for and get to know ya.
Well, I wouldn't say it, but every time you're always like, I expect something at the end, so I feel I have to throw it in there.
No, I'm serious. I always do expect something at the end. That's the best part. So, hey, Moneypenny, let me undo that for and get to know ya.
That was fun. Good job.
I don't think he gets it. I don't think
he's getting it.
I don't think Sam knows what you're doing.
Sam,
you're supposed to be Jimmy Stewart as Moneypenny.
And I'm playing Sean Connery as James Bond.
And we're still recording.
We are.
think Sam thinks he's already done the bit, and I agree. I think that first one was good.
Hey, Manny Penny, let me undo that bow and get to know ya.
Do the what?
We are driving off the cliff. No one can stop us. Oh my God! Somebody help me!
I got tears rolling down my face. All right, that's it. I give up.
That is not limping across the finish line.
No, that's like that Iron Man where the guy just kind of like collapsed like 50 yards from the finish.
This has been a test of the Southsider Studios podcast system. This was only a test. If this were a true lack of entertainment, your head would explode. Go to iTunes and subscribe to our feed. Just search Southsider Studios.